This screencast is a basic overview of Adobe Audition CS6. They do have a current version with the subscription-based Creative Cloud, which is Audition CC. Now there are numerous sound editing programs, and there is a free one which is very good, which is called Audacity. They mainly work in the same way. So we're going to have a basic overview of how to do some editing, ideally to clean up some sound, also to make a very simple podcast. The interface is very simple. You have obviously your menus up at the top. We have multi-track waveform and also a lot of other editing buttons up at the top. Down at the left side we've got the files panel. That's where you would have all your sound files ready to be edited. There's a media browser where you can browse to find again other sound clips, markers, and also properties when that's on. Down at the bottom you've got your histories, and also you can use it for editing video files and syncing those up. On the right side, the large panel here is the actual editor where you see all the files appear, and also the mixer. Down at the bottom you've got your levels, and also you've got your selection information down at the bottom once files are selected. It's got workspace up at the top. Mainly they go for whatever you're doing, certainly if you're doing audio to video, radio production, and also it's got classic and default. We'll just leave that on default. Now there's a number of ways you can bring in your sound files. You can use the media browser, the panel here, or basically what you can do is bring in your files by, in the files panel, clicking open file and then going and selecting your file and then bringing that in. Or the other option is you can drag and drop your files. So you can move down here and you can drag and drop your file into the files panel. To delete files, you can just click on there and click the trash can, and that gets rid of them. Now we'll bring in a music file. I've got it here. Now it will recognize many different formats, including MP3s and WAV files. Always important if you want good quality is to actually bring in a WAV file rather than recording on an MP3. You might want to later on, if it's a podcast, save it as an MP3, but best idea and good housekeeping is to bring in WAV files. Now we've brought in our music clip here. Now to put it in here, and we're in the waveform workspace in the editor. Now what this does is, you can see it, and again you can move the scrubber across your music. Down at the bottom there's some magnifying glasses for zooming in and out of the workspace, whichever way you want that to go, to zoom in, to zoom out. Also this one will sort of narrow it down as you more you click on it and send it in and send it out. Okay. Up at the top, if you zoom out a bit more, you'll see there's a little bar which sort of acts as a larger scrubber, which will move across all your music or your soundtrack to find certain locations, and also it lets you know where the playback head is as well, so you know where the position of anything is. Now ideally when you are doing editing, you are going to have probably a multi-channel mix. You'll have some different sounds and you'll be laying them up. So this is a raw file that's actually come in here, and ideally what you would be doing is making a multi-track. So there's a number of ways of making a multi-track. You can, if we drag in another file, I'll put this on here, It's another file, so I've got now 2 files in the Files panel. Now you can shift click and right mouse click, and you can say insert into multi-track session, and that will do it. You can go up to the top and insert a multi-track. So it's whatever way you want to do it, or you can click up the top here and it gives you a multi-track. So I'm going to call this podcast because you give it a name, and then you need to browse to where you want to save it. Now I'm going to save it with my other sound files in here and click choose. Now the next options are you can use templates. Now it has lots of useful templates depending on what you're doing, which has formatting and little clips that you can use. Basically, you need to have a good overview of Audition and how it works to make the best use of these. So we're just going to leave it on none, but it might be something you need to look at later on. Then we have the sample rate. The sample rate here is on 44/100, which is CD quality, which is probably good enough for most sound editing, unless you want to go any higher. But especially if you're going to do a podcast, I would leave it on 44/100. If maybe you're doing your sound for video, for high quality video, maybe go to 48, but we're going to leave it on 44/100. Now the next bit is the float. Now the float is just the quality of depth of quality of your sound file. CD quality is 16, but it's got its on 32, which we'll just leave it on that. Bigger your sample rate and bit depth, the bigger your sound file will be. Down at the bottom we got master. You can have it on mono, stereo, or 5.1, which is surround sound. Mainly you'll be using it on stereo, and again, if you have a stereo file, it'll be bigger than a mono file, depending on what you're doing. If you've just got some voice on there, you might just want to go for mono, but we'll leave it on stereo. Now we'll click OK. Now what you will see is it's created another multi-track file, and we've still got our 2 files. Now what happens is sort of a multi-track is sort of non-destructive. It sort of includes our raw files we've got above it, but basically it doesn't mess up those original files. It has a file which is non-destructive. We can edit them in here, but it only edits the actual sound files that are in the multi-mix track. When you've finished, you'll have to mix it down. Now when you're in the multi-mix track, which is here, you will see there's lots and lots of tracks, and if you go down you can have lots of tracks on there. Ideally you might only be using about 3, 4, maybe less, maybe 2 quite possibly, sound with a voice on it, and also some sound with music on it. Now these are all repeats basically, so they're all just identical with their controls. It's not like they're all different, they're all similar in their controls. Now also it has a mixer on here which works as certainly a mixer desk, if people are familiar with that, and I think it also has some functions where you can attach it to a tablet and use the mixer desk in conjunction with that, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing something a little bit more complex with lots of musical instruments and backing tracks, then this will be used to you. But I'll just go back to the editor. Now what you will need to do is to bring in your sound file, and here I've just got an audio book on here, which is all I do is I drag it on. Now I can position it anywhere, I can move it along, or at any point I can put it down. So what I'll do is I'll just leave it right up on here. Now it comes in, and again we can play it.
I was aroused from sleep by the cry of fire.
Okay, so when it comes in, you can change things. When you listen to it,
sleep by the cry of fire. The curtains.
You will be looking at the levels and making sure that the levels are not topping out. They should go red right at the top if it's too high.
My bed were in flames. The whole.
Now what you can do is you can change the volume in a number of different ways. If it's playing, you can move the little yellow bar and that moves it up, and you see it's topping out now. So ideally you need to have some sort of headspace there and bring it down. Now you can move that up and down, or you can go over here with the control and take that down, or you can take it up. Now I'll just turn that off. Now there's another way of doing it automatically. If you want to get the sound right, you can click on there, right mouse click, then you go into match clip volume, and ideally you're going to put an amount in here with the decibels. I'm just going to have this maybe a little bit louder, and so I'll make it 20. And then I just click OK to that. And what it will do is it looks through the sound and sort of equals it out and gets it right, so maybe it's not topping out too much on the different tracks. So that automatically does it, and Audition does that. Now what you can do is, once you've got that block, you can move it around, you can move it down and put it in any other blocks you want, move it forward and back, it's up to you. Sometimes if you've got some, say, speech like sounds, you may want to move it away from the beginning. Now how you mix other tracks, you would go over and get another sound clip and bring it in. This one I'll just bring it in. Now this is a long music file. Now I want to just hear this track, track 2, so I need to go up to the first track and press the mute button. Now what will happen now when I play the track, it won't be 2 tracks playing, only 1. So we got that, so I can edit that sound. Now I'll just stop that. I'm using the space bar to move the scrubber along, or the playback head, and stop it, so clicking it. Now what we have is the music tracks all the way along. Now if I maybe bring that in a little bit, and what it's doing is clipping it off. It's not actually doing anything to the original file. I can drag that out again and it's still as it is. It's clipping it off and making it shorter. So I need to make it a little bit shorter. Bring it in there. I'll just have it about here. And again, we can just zoom in a little bit. And this really gets it quite accurate, whereas you've got your settings and bring it in so far. And then I'll just bring this in a little bit and this in. Now I'll turn the mute off. Now if we have it coming in,
from sleep by the cry of fire.
now what we want to do is, it's a little bit loud, so you can always, you can actually use this to actually take it up and down, or the other thing you can actually do is it's got these little fade in and fade out. Now we will need the music to sort of fade in or fade out, so you bend these around on there. So you've got your music fading in or fading out, and also here you can have it fading back down as well. So you have that coming along. So if I move my track along here now, and we see how that works.
It was done. I was aroused from sleep by the cry of fire.
So basically you can fade music in and out to have it sort of fading from nothing to something and then fading back down. You can stretch it out a little bit more, your sound file, and also change how it does fade in and fade out and the amount it does it. And you can have that overlaid on a soundtrack file. So as someone starts speaking or another track comes in, you can have it fading away in the background. Now also, if you notice down the histories will be recording everything we do, so we can always go back steps, and that will take us back and through all the different applications we've applied to our sound files. Now to get rid of, say, the contents of this track 2, I can just click on it and press delete on the keyboard, and get rid of that track. Now it's still there, so I can drag it out. That's just the edited multi-track I've made, and I will put the mute back on. Now here's my track. Now you can also have this fading in and fading out, so you can move those in.
The curtains of my bed were in flames. The whole house was blazing. It was with...
So basically you can do that, and I can take it right back off again. Now with that being on there, in the multi-track you can actually cut out bits of sound. Now usually what you probably would do is you would zoom in a little bit more, and also you would sort of zoom out and have it at a position you're quite comfortable with, so you can see the sound you're playing at. Now up at the top you've got the whole thing, so you can go along once it's in there. Now you can obviously listen.
Was done. I was aroused from sleep by the cry of fire.
Now if I wanted to get rid of that little bit of space here that doesn't have any sound on it, obviously it's pauses in the actual story that's being told, you can cut that out. So I've got that there, and I can put that on. Now I can click on the razor tool here, and if I click the razor on here, I can then drag out and click another point here. Now what I've done is I've sort of razored those two points. I'll go back and get the arrow. Now what I can do is I could delete that if I wished. I'll just bring it back, or I can just move it to another location, so I can move it to another track underneath if I wanted to. But ideally what sometimes you would do is just delete it. Now where I've got that little bit of a gap, I'll just blow that up again. Also I do want to get rid of this bit here, so again I'll get the eraser tool, I'll just click on there, and then make sure I get my arrowhead selection tool and delete that. Now what I can do is right mouse in this space, and it's got ripple, delete, and we say gap, and it will just close that up. So if you notice now, it's got rid of any gaps or pauses, and this is a good way you would clean up.
I was aroused from sleep by the cry. I was aroused from sleep by the cry.
So basically you go through your audio, find all the parts you need to get rid of, and erase those out and cut them out. Another part when you are starting to cut things out, and as we've mentioned before, the multi-track is non-destructive, so it isn't damaging the original source files. They're still there. So next to the eraser tool for cutting, you can actually click on the slip tool. Now when you click on the slip tool, what that does is you click and it pulls out all the others. So this is parts of the original track. So if you do make a mistake or somewhere, you can actually pull out the original bit that's been sort of chopped out and bring it back again if you wish. Okay, we'll just go back to the eraser tool again. I've dragged out another sound file in track 2, and this time I'm going to go back to the eraser tool, and the option we had before was eraser selected clips, and that will just do the one you click on or the one you have selected. Now if you do eraser all clips, if I just click here, it slices through both of those tracks there, and I move it along there. So what it has done, when I go back to the selection tool, it's cut both of those out in one go. So you might want to do that. You want to cut through all the tracks and make them shorter and get rid of them. And again, you can delete these clips and get rid of them, and then you can right mouse click and again bring the gaps along. So it might be the case that you have 2 tracks you want to sort of cut at once. Now we're going to look at doing some effects. So I've gotten a track that I brought into the files. Again, you can change the workspace slightly. You can pull this over so these panels on the left are basically a little bit more narrow if you need more space in the editor view or the editor panel. So I've got that on there. What I can do is I've got it in. I'll just go for another multi-track. Give it a name. save it in the appropriate place. Now once I've got it there, I'll just drag out my file. You can put 16 effects on your soundtrack, and you'll see here once you're in the FX, the effects, if I move this down and I go all the way down, you'll see it stops at 16. Now there's a number of ways you can do it. You can certainly come along here and you can go up to the effects and it has them in here, or you can click on the little button here for one of them and you can select an effect. Lots of them are basically to average things out. So if I put basically an echo on there, you can change how much it's working out as, change it to customize it. I'll just close that.
It was done. I was aroused from sleep by the cry of fire. The curtains of my bed were in flames.
Now you can put other filters on and turn them off. Basically, if I click the little power switch,
Find myself, then
it turns that filter off, and then you can go to another filter. Now some of the filters may not work depending on what conditions you're on, but if I say go up to the filter and graphical equalizer, I can click on there and it brings up a panel. Now if I press play,
forward to despair. I am the purpose of seeking out to establish a sequence of cause and effect between the disaster and the atrocity. But I am detailing a chain of facts and wish not to leave even a possible link imperfect.
now you can arrange those on there, and when you're happy with it, basically you can close it down. And again, you can turn them off and you can turn them on. And then so you can try out different types of settings. You can have the same filter again and again and just have different settings until you're happy with them and switch them on and off. You can actually remove filters by going right mouse clicking on that button and then removing those filters so you don't have any filters or effects on there. Now you can also make selections based on time. So up at the top we have the time select tool, or press T on your keyboard. And what you can do is just drag out a proportion of your sound clip file to wherever you want it to be. You can sort of rearrange it, and you can actually move it along and make a selection. So this could be just dragging it out for whatever it is, and basically what also happens is the playback head sticks to it, so you can move it along, and if that's that chunk basically you want, you move it along the selection, and also it's giving you information about where the start and the finish is, and the playback head sticks to it.
Into the ruins, the walls.
And we can click on it. Now what you can do is once you're happy with that, say if you're just cutting something out, you could then right mouse click and you could split. Now what splitting does, it splits it. So if I just get the select tool and move that away, what it's done, it's got a selection of itself. So you can do a number of things. You can have that fading in and fading out on its own, or you can move it down and place it in another track or move it somewhere else. So again, to recap, that is the time select tool, dragging it out and making your selection. Now back in the multi-track editor, I've got some sound files in here. So I've got two sound files, and it's sort of going to have it fading in and basically fading out. So I'll go for my first one, which I'll just drag out and place here. I've got that on there. I'll play that. It's a crowd laughing. I go to the next one. I've got a crowd booing, so I just drag that out. I'll just put it on here. Now what I will do is I'll just bring this in a little bit to make it a little bit shorter. And what I will do is I'll have it sort of fading in. So I move it so it sort of fades in. And then at the end I'm going to have it fading out. Basically it starts to fade out. So it does this. and it goes to nothing. And what I will do is I'll bring along the booing one again and just sort of minus that down. I'll just make it a little bit shorter. I'll have it back here. Now I'm going to have it so it's just about starting where this one starts to fade out, and then I sort of move the fade so it's on the same sort of position there, so it's sort of as the other one's coming out it's going over, and then I'll have it fading again at the bottom there, so it's fading in and fading out. Now how that will work is one comes in, fades out, and then the other one fades up. So basically you can overlay tracks and have them blending in with other tracks by using the fade in and fade out. On a selected clip in here or ripple, you can go up to the clip menu and do a fade in or fade out. So if I go fade in, it will put that on there, and then also you can do a fade out at the end rather than doing it manually. Right, so another feature you can use is markers. Down in the middle panel on the left, you'll have Media Browser, Effects Rack, and then you will have markers. If you click on markers, put the playback head where you want your marker to appear, and then you click on the marker, and you'll see the marker will appear at the top. Now you can name your markers whatever you want to be. It's to identify certain parts of your audio file, so you can go to them and maybe edit things out. You might want to have edit points, so you can rename them if you wish, but that's how you would do that. Then I would move my playback head somewhere else, select another place where I want to put a marker, and again click on that, and obviously it's naming them marker 2, marker 1. It tells you where they start. Now what would happen if I want to go back to marker 1? I could just double click on the marker and it would take me to that marker. So if you've got a sound file and you want to identify parts of it to edit it or go back to those parts later, that's how you would work on it. You would set up markers throughout it to identify certain parts of your audio file. Now once you've finished editing your multitrack, you will obviously, you could save it and that will just save it as an Audition multitrack, but when you come to go and use it somewhere else, what you would do is export it. So you would go to File, Export, Multitrack Mixdown, and then go for the entire selection. Now you would give it an appropriate name up at the top. It gives you some options. So if you were going to save it for high quality, you probably go for some like a WAV file. If you were going to do it for a podcast, you might go for MP3. Now again, the sample is okay with being 44:100, and then it's asking you, do you want to save the markers? Sometimes you can import those into Premiere to use for editing the file. We'll just turn that off basically because there's nothing in there that we would probably need, and I'm just going to click OK. Now once it's saved it, you will now have it as its file. So basically it would have saved it there as a file.
It was done. I was around.
And that's ready to use, either upload it for your podcast or use it and import it anywhere where you wish.